So, stage one is just you start to believe maybe there's something more out there for me. Maybe life isn't just repeating the same day again and again and again for a paycheck to have enough money to, drink mimosas on the weekend with people I don't even really like. Health, fitness, wellness, meditation, even biohacking. It's really focused on improving the mind and the body. How is my mind and body an indicator of something deeper that is out of alignment in my soul? And that brings us to stage three, the spiritual awakening. But it is this big crack of the truth is, I don't know. That becomes your mantra. I don't know. So I always say it's like you're born on a highway, and on the end of that highway is your Dharma, who you're meant to be, how you're meant to be of service to humanity, integrating your highest form of joy and your highest form of service. So Dharma is your divine purpose. It's why you're here. Karma is the bounded action by the universe. I hear this man behind me saying, can someone help me cross the street? I look back, I see this homeless man, discolored face, bags, like holding bags. And something in my head said, Sahara, if you say you're a good person, help this man cross the street. I've realized now that that homeless man who helped me cross the street was not actually a human.
Well, Sahara, welcome to Elevated Conversations. It's like so great to meet you and get this opportunity to have a chat.
Likewise, Pete and Roxy, I'm so excited to dive in today.
We've got the energy of the waters around us, pouring rain. So hopefully cleansing and movement might come in the background through this through this call. One of the things that made a huge difference in our life, I think, was moving from what we often refer to as service to self, mindlessly, like just living our life to hopefully accumulate some money and some experiences that we thought might be beneficial and what everyone's after, to starting to connect into more our soul's purpose. And of course, that's what led us. 5 years ago, we were insurance brokers. And heck, now we're on a call talking to you about the soul and purpose. You use the beautiful word Dharma. Can you expand on that a little for us, please?
Well, I love what examples you both are of within 5 years, how much your life can change. And I feel most of us believe, like on a deep level, that I can live my purpose, but it's going to take 30 years, and so I love that you share that 5 years ago, you were living this completely different reality. And in 5 years, not just now you just started, but you're fully in it. You're fully in your Dharma. So there's 5 stages of Dharma. We're going to go through them, but you guys are living in stage 5. So kudos to you. And for everyone listening, we'll be talking about the pathway. So the word Dharma, it means your soul's purpose, the big reason why you are here, and not your career or job necessarily, though that can play a role. But I always say your Dharma is you in action. So your Dharma is you being the full expression of who you're here to be. It is your energetic frequency. It is your unique soul signature. It is the thing that someone can just see your Instagram feed or hear a conversation or go into your home and be like, of it. That is your Dharma. And I feel we often in the Western world think our Dharma is just our career. And yes, there comes a point where you love what you're doing so much that you want to do it full time. And then it naturally will transition into your career. But actually, Dharma starts way before that. So I like to break it down into 5 stages, and we can get into that if you'd like.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating. And I love where this is going, right? Because one of the beautiful stages of awakening for people is this realization that they've got a soul, right? That they're not just, living day to day. I remember the moment where I was walking around the grocery store and I realized, 99% of the people around me don't even realize yet that they've got a soul, that they're here to do something more. So This is fascinating. Let's hear about these five
Well, what's
stages.
even more fascinating, Pete, is you just literally verbatim said what happens in stage three.
Oh,
So
Ah,
really?
that's really interesting. So it starts with stage one, which is kind of also what you're speaking about. And I want you guys to chime in of like what this journey was like for you, because your
mm,
listeners
Yes.
know you. And I think it would help them see like actually how this plays out. So stage one is just you start to believe maybe there's something more out there for me. Maybe life isn't just repeating the same day again and again and again for a paycheck to have enough money to like, drink mimosas on the weekend with people I don't even really like, and then spend all my money maybe once a year at an all-inclusive resort. And then like, that's the pinnacle of my life. Like there has to be something more to this. So just that seed of like, maybe there, I don't know if I have a purpose, but like there's something greater within me that I'm meant for something more than this. And that is stage one. And yes, most people are not there yet on earth.
mm. I can
Most people
see
are
in our life that where we were at stage one, when we were thinking, are we really going to do this for the rest of our life, sell insurance? Like, because we had the babies in the office with us with staff, and I had a cot room, and I was feeding and doing calls. It was just like, what am I doing? This awakening to what am I doing? Is this really what reality is? And that's when the questioning started for us.
Because it's beyond personal development, right? There's a little bit of like personal development, which is like, if you want an extraordinary life, you've got to hustle, and you got to get up at 5 a.m. and work until 12 o'clock at night. And that's what you got to do, right? You got to push, 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 push. And oh my goodness, I feel like when you get in alignment with your Dharma, it's a lot easier. It's a lot more freeing. I'll let you keep going.
It's so funny, Pete, because now you just said stage two. So you're like channeling this.
You and
Yeah.
me, look at us go.
Yeah, you're connected.
We
Okay,
do read
so
energy for
stage
a living.
two. Yeah, he's a psychic here. He's gonna know what I say before. So
I
stage
love it.
two is that personal development. It's
Mm.
when you're like, I'm gonna start to eat healthier because I feel like crap after, these burgers I eat. I'm going to start going to the gym because my back hurts so bad that I can't even pay attention. I'm going to start to meditate because I'm so freaking anxious that it's hard for me to even like fall asleep. So you go on this journey of self-help. That's what the self-help space is in. How do I become my best self? So health, fitness, wellness, meditation, even biohacking. It's really focused on improving the mind and the body. And this is a beautiful place to be, and it's a necessary place to be. However,
Mm.
it's stage two of five. It's not the end.
Mm.
Most people
Mm.
are like, now I'm working on myself, and they might stop there. But the thing is, and for me, my entryway was health. I went through really bad health challenges. My body was shutting down. Doctors told me I went into perimenopause when I was like 21 years old. I had no hormones in my body, and I had to really go on a journey of self-healing, which is what guided me to Ayurveda, which healed, not just my mind and body, but made me start thinking about my soul and start thinking about my purpose and start
Chills.
thinking about all of these deeper things. So I realized that I am not a mind and a body to improve, but rather I am a soul to know.
Mm.
And that maybe nothing was ever wrong with me, but rather I just didn't know me.
Mm.
And that is the shift into stage three. When you go on this journey of not trying to improve the mind and body, but rather who is underneath this mind and body, and why is she or he in pain that my mind and body is a reflection of this? How is my mind and body an indicator of something deeper that is out of alignment in my soul? And that brings us to stage three, the spiritual awakening, which a lot of your listeners right now maybe are in right now. And that's when you're like, what's my astrology and my human design and my ancestral trauma and my inner child and plant medicine and Reiki and shamanism. And, it can feel like a spiritual wonderland. There's so many systems, and it's really exciting and also really overwhelming. And it's a beautiful place to be. And it's when you start really questioning everything. And you're like, you go to you guys don't have Thanksgiving. We have Thanksgiving. It's like when you have to see your whole family and you're like, I see all of the generational trauma being played out here. Like you're a narcissist, you're codependent, but the thing is, in stage three, it can feel like us versus them. It can feel like I'm awake and these are the sheeple. And now we have to wake up the sheeple. So you see a lot of like the kind of like conspiratorial YouTube rabbit holes of like, we have to awaken consciousness until it reaches this pivotal point, and then otherwise we're all doomed. And it can also be very fear-based, and just like this huge overwhelm that can lead to just feeling like I don't even know what to do. Right. So we don't want to just stay there again. We're just still in stage 3, but it is this big crack of the truth is, I don't know. That becomes your mantra. I don't know. So that is the opening that happens in stage 3 with the spiritual awakening, and through dabbling in Abraham Hicks to Zen Buddhism and everything in between, you start to find what works for you, right?
Yeah.
What are the actual modalities and tools that are moving the needle for you? Not just so you can know every single one of your gene key, but to actually improve your life. Because I think sometimes when we start with the spiritual journey, we're like, am I a Pleiadian or a Syrian starseed? And it's like, and it's so exciting, but then sometimes we can focus on these things that don't actually change this physical world that we're in. And so what happens in stage 4 is Dharma development. So we start to go in, what are the actual tools and practices that are going to bring about a new reality for me on the things that matter to me? And we start to find our pathway. And rather than trying to figure out every system and every tool and every modality, we focus on what really works for us. And as we're focusing in that practice, we start to develop our own insight, our own way of doing things. Maybe I did transcendental meditation, but for me, I do it a little bit more this way. And then that became Vedic meditation, for example. So we're kind of learning about the different things, but adding our own personality and experiences and the obstacles we've overcome and starting to make it a little bit our own. But we're still in that studying, right? We're not yet sharing it with other people. Eventually you start to share it maybe with a friend, a family member, a little bit more, random people at a party. Maybe then you decide to become a yoga teacher or a breathwork facilitator, or then a life coach, and, start to build a little bit more. And now you're moving into stage 5. Stage 5 is Dharma embodiment. So now this is when you are being you full time. When there is no difference between the outer and inner you. It's not like the Pete at work and the Pete at home, but Pete is always Pete. Different versions of him for sure, but he doesn't have to wear a mask and shoot the shit about rugby and then come home and be talking about astral projection. He gets to be him all the time. And that Dharma embodiment can only come through the development, right? The development, we have to learn why things are the way that they are for us to now create our own unique take and spin on things. So in Dharma embodiment stage 5 that you guys are in, maybe some of your listeners are in, you kind of start to go through everything in your life and see what's not in alignment. And the things that are not in alignment will crumble down. So if there is a relationship that is not fully in alignment with your Dharma, it's not serving your highest purpose, it will crumble. If there are friendships that are not serving you, that shadow will come really face to face and it will crumble. Maybe where you live, different things like that, because your Dharma is the most important thing in your lifetime. It's literally why you are here. It's literally why your soul chose to incarnate on this planet. So anything that is preventing you from living your Dharma, it's going to become so painful and burn your hand until you have to let it go. And so we do go through a series of dark nights of the souls and initiations, and they happen in every stage. But I found, and it was my case as well, a really big one happens when you're in deep in that Dharma embodiment of that thing that you were living your Dharma and you were getting away with this, but now it's to hit that next level, that next frontier, this got to go too. And I find it's almost at the mall, we used to have these coins, we would put in the coin, would spin, and it would spin faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. That's what your Dharma is. It's the closer you get to your Dharma, the more faster things happen. You meet the right person at the right time. They say the right thing. So many synchronicities start showing up because you are living in alignment with who you're meant to be. And the universe supports it because the universe literally chose you to do that thing, right? I always say your dreams are dreaming you back. So I always say it's you're born on a highway, and on the end of that highway is your Dharma, who you're meant to be, how you're meant to be of service to humanity, integrating your highest form of joy and your highest form of service. So you were born on that highway, cruise control, meant to live your Dharma, but society has exits, in your town. No one ever makes it out of here. So get off this exit and, become an electrician before it's too late. Or
So
if
true. Go to uni.
right, if you don't marry someone in this small town, like forget it, or your parents won't love you, or you won't make money doing this, and no one's ever done that, and you've never seen that done before. And so you're going down this highway, and before you know it, everyone you know is getting off an exit. You're like, they're gone, they've given up. Maybe I'm the only one going down this highway. Maybe this Dharma thing doesn't even exist. Maybe this is like a Santa Claus story that you're supposed to think when you're a kid, and then you're supposed to grow out of. Shit, maybe before the last exit goes away, I should get that stable job that I hate but will pay the bills, or whatever the thing is. So we get off of the exit, and we all do it. Every single person on earth does it. No matter how hippie your parents were, you're going to get off some exit. You get off, and the universe is like, okay, you're not listening, it's fine, I'm going to give you some signs. Tap, 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 tap. Something feels off, something feels out of balance. Just that little intuitive, like, is this right? Is this that's, and most people don't listen there. So then the universe is like, okay, let me turn it up a notch. Let me make it a little bit louder. Punch, 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 punch. Maybe now you're chronically anxious. Maybe you're getting panic attacks. Maybe just like things are really not going well. But you know what? You're like, life's tough. Get a helmet. Everyone hates their job. This is just how it's supposed to be. So let me just stick through this even longer. Drink more coffee, take more Adderall, just do it.
So good.
And so you continue to get off that exit. And then the universe is like, okay, bitch, you're not paying attention. Smack, collision, on the knees moment, like accident, getting fired, like health crisis, suicidal ideation. Like how deep does your rock bottom need to be? Right. And I think we all kind of need to hit that bottom of the barrel sometimes to make that shift. So what I just described to you were the laws of Dharma and karma. So Dharma is your divine purpose. It's why you're here. Karma is the bounded action by the universe, not to hurt you, but to keep you in alignment with your Dharma. It's those barricades on the side of the highway that, yeah, it's annoying, but it's like saying, don't get off here. So those pains, those uncertainties, those series of unfortunate events, it's actually saying, this is not how life is meant to be lived. If I am struggling every single day, if I'm waking up with dread, this is not the path for me. And the only way that we humans respond is through pain and discomfort. So the universe needs to make it painful and discomfort, give us that karma, give us that bounded action so we can then U-turn. And then let go of that job, that limiting belief, that trauma, that whatever the thing is, and start to U-turn towards our Dharma, that path that we already know, that we were born as, that we already remember, we just, again, forgot. And then we start to receive the divine support, the right people at the right time, the synchronicities, the angel numbers, listening to a podcast. And for some reason, there could be this moment right now, it's saying exactly what you need to hear.
Yeah.
Like there is a reason why you are here listening to this right now. Your soul was ready for it. Your soul asked for it. Your soul is asking us right now to be the messenger of the thing that you are not letting yourself hear. And so how loud, how obvious does it need to be? I hope it's this podcast. But for some people, it might be a couple more dark nights of the soul until they make a shift. And guess what? Some people live in that state.
Yeah.
Some people live in series of unfortunate events after series of unfortunate events. Look at our parents. Look at our grandparents. At some point, when you've just only known discomfort and pain, you just are used to it because it's the cage that you know. But I feel, obviously, if they're listening to your guys' podcast, a deep part of their soul is ready to awaken and is ready to take that journey. So I pray that this is the reminder that your soul needed for you to finally take. Yes, get curious, start journaling, hit pause right now, journal what's coming up for you, record a voice memo of yourself, write that email, like do something with this energy because it is asking you to do something with it.
Wow, you speak so fluidly and your explanations and analogies are really, really clear. Like I'm getting the visuals as you're speaking and storytelling. And I really feel like you're walking in that Dharma for yourself. So congratulations. I was reflecting back into our own life and could feel through all of those different stages for us and just saw them so clearly. And
so what was your stage one? You said it was having the baby, realizing, am I going to do this forever? Would you say that was the turning point?
Yeah, I think so. We're always into self-help and looking after ourselves, but with a little bit of 3D partying on the weekends and drinking and barbecues and gossiping, another coffee and gossip, as you've said before. And that was just a cycle, and we never knew there was anything else until we started to ask, what is there? What more is there? And that's when we had the awakening into, I think we're a light worker, and that word activated us. And then we went straight off to ayahuasca and started to do that inner healing, which is level 3. And then discovering, the warm up before the Dharma in level 4, our craft and our channeling, and discovering who we are, taking back off those clothes, those layers, those facades that had built us from conditioning and the environment that we were in, and starting to really shine the light that we were. And then moving into level 5. And I feel like for Pete in particular, watching you, and I haven't really observed myself yet, and it hasn't joined the dot there, but Pete walks in every area of his life now in a spiritual way. Before we would hide a little bit, that kind of way, like, oh, don't say too much. Now it's like the frequency, the radio station that we're on is constantly spiritual, so walking in it and honoring it in level 5 is what I really loved seeing in you, in you and in me. So it's really cool. It's really nice to have that level and understand it. And it's just road mapping. We just got to listen to the signs, like you said, like you took the wrong exit, back on track, and when it's all flow, it's flowing through us. And all we need to do is be that open conduit. So for you in your Dharma, what do you, has there been any pivotal moments where perhaps you took the wrong exit and got back on? And what did you learn from those?
Well, my journey started with, as I mentioned, going through the health challenges, and Ayurveda really being the thing that helped me understand that my mind and body were connected, and my health challenges were a reflection of that. And now I can understand a reflection of me not living my Dharma, because we can take all the supplements and eat all the greens, but if we're not living our truth, we're going to feel that physical somatic pain. So as I went on that journey of studying Ayurveda, I was blogging and wanted to share it, and I wanted to write a book, but I had never met anyone that wrote a book in their life. And, my family came from Iran, like women were not even allowed to work. There was no person living their Dharma in my lineage. And I just spent I was living in South India in a hut, no money, just any money I would make as a health coach, I would just invest it into getting my book edited. And I had this idea of writing a book. So I just put all of my time and energy and focus, but I had no idea of the process. I just figured I'm just going to write it and then figure it out later on. So I spent 2 years writing that book. And finally, I met this girl who knew a literary agent, and she shopped it around to different publishers, and all 30 of them rejected me.
Oh,
that was that. The book's not going to happen. And in this time of my life, my family disowned me. They said that I was crazy, that I'm taking advice from hippies, and that they want nothing to do with me. So I was disowned by my family, broke, spent 2 years trying to make this book happen, rejected by 30 publishers. And so that would have been a really good time to just stop, quit, crawl into a hole for the rest of my life. But I just knew somehow it's I had to have gone through these challenges for a reason. There had to be something bigger, but I didn't know what. And it wasn't until actually a few months later that same, and I, at this point, was I guess I'm going to become a real estate agent. I just felt the closest thing I could just get some sort of job where I would have enough time to still try to figure out how to do this. So I'm studying for the real estate agent exam, but I'm crying every time.
Can't believe you just said that.
I don't even
I've had
believe
that thought.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it's everyone's safety thought, And every time I would just study, it just felt so out of alignment. And then that literary agent came back to me and she said, we're looking for someone to write The Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda. There was an author who was 4 months into the 6 months and she quit because it was too much work. Would you be interested in submitting a sample chapter? I was like, sure, yes. I went to the bookstore, read every single Idiot's Guide book, stayed up all night, wrote that first chapter, submitted it. They're like, okay, this is good. How would you do the table of contents? every single chapter, what would be in it. Went back to the bookstore, read every single idiot's guide to Ayurveda's table of contents, stayed up all night, wrote that table of contents, 16-page table of contents, super detailed. And then a few days later, I was hired to write this book. And I was like, okay, now I have 2 months to write an entirely new book on Ayurveda in their tone, 400 something page textbook for the American public. And I was like, how am I going to even do this? And like, also still like, I want to make like my book happen, like my unique take on Ayurveda. So I was like a little bit like excited, but also like, this wasn't what I planned. This wasn't how I wanted it to be, but at least it's writing a book, you know? So I just decided like writing something when you don't want to write it is actually harder than just like fully being in it. So I decided, you know what? I might die next year. And if this is the only book I get to write in my entire life, I'm just going to put my all into it.
Bless you.
For those
That's
2
beautiful.
months, yeah, that's all I did. I would just write and write and write and just put my best content, my, you know, not that holding back energy that we do sometimes. If like I'm holding this back for like my real thing, I just gave it all, you know? And so I wrote that book and it was about to get printed. Now this is like a year later. And this is a whole story, but this is how I met Deepak Chopra. I was always a huge fan of his. Like when me and my parents would fight, I'd be like, one day I'm going to be like Deepak Chopra. They're like, he's a charlatan and so are you. And I was just like, no, you don't understand us. But I just always really resonated with how he brought like Vedic wisdom into the Western world. And so I'm at this yoga and science conference, which was just like, you know, academics talking. And in my head, it's pretty boring. So I'm like, you know what? The only thing that could make right now super lit is if Deepak Chopra walks on stage. And then they're like, okay, and here's our sponsor, actually. Deepak Chopra walks on stage. And they're like, now it's time for a lunch break. Everyone can leave. This is an auditorium with over 1,000 people. Everyone's leaving. And something came through that was like, Sahara, you're probably never going to see him again for the rest of your life. Go up to him and just say something. I didn't even know what I was going to say. I just walk down the stairs. Everyone's walking up. I walk up the stairs of the stage. I walk onto the stage. I just stand next to him. He's not talking onto everyone. He's having a conversation with someone. So I'm just standing next to him. Again, no idea what I'm going to say. And he turns and he looks at me. He's like, hello. And I'm like, hi, Dr. Chopra. Like, I'm such a fan of your work. It really inspired me. And I actually just wrote this book, The Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda. And it's with your same publisher. And I would love to send you the PDF. And he's like, sure. And he gave me his email. I was like, this is the best day of my life. Like nothing is ever going to top this. I have Deepak Chopra's email. I can die happy. And like, to me, that was the pinnacle. Like I got his email. Like I did not expect him to ever even respond to me, you know? And I was so excited. 2 days later, I'm walking to meet my friend. I'm running late. I'm eating while I'm walking. I hear this man behind me saying, can someone help me cross the street? I look back. I see this homeless man, discolored face, bags, like holding bags. And something in my head said, Sahara, if you say you're a good person, help this man cross the street. So I go back and I say, sir, where do you need to go? And he's like, oh, actually takes me by the arm. I can smell his like putrid smell. And he's like, can you take me 2 blocks down the subway and help me get on this subway? I was like, sure. So I take him and we're walking and I'm like, so like, where are you from? Turns out he was a refugee from Iraq who had escaped the war. And I tell him my mom was a refugee from Iran that escaped the war. These wars were against each other, by the way. And so we're like, talking about that and life. And I get him into the subway and the door is about to close. And I'm like, by the way, sir, where are you going? And he said, I'm going to university to teach. I'm a doctor of physics. And I was like, subway closes. And I was like, wow, that was a very like Humans of New York experience. Like I thought he was homeless, like, and he was a doctor of physics. How cool is that? I'm walking and I just decide to check my email and there's an email from Deepak Chopra. And it says, what is your number? I would like to call you. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm in trouble. He hated the book. He's mad at me. Like, he has to be mad at me right now. Like, that's it. I'm like, what could it be? And so I just reply right there. And I'm like, my number is this. And then he very quickly calls me and he's like, where are you going to be on Tuesday? And I said, I don't actually live in New York. I was living at my grandma's place, guys. I had no money. I was like, I live in LA. And he's like, great, because on Tuesday I'm doing a seminar for You Are the Universe, and I would like you to come and have a meeting with you after. I was like, I'll be there. So my flight back to LA was on Monday. I go back to LA. I think I like slept in my car the night before. I'm like doing all these like yantras, like just trying to be in the right energetic alignment. Again, no idea what he even wants to talk about. And so I'm literally shaking in the crowd, like trembling, shaking. He's on stage giving a 4-hour seminar. Bless him. He's got a lot of energy. Yeah. The man continues to deliver.
Yeah.
76 years old today. And he walks on stage and he's like, come with me. I'm like, sure. Takes me into this room and there's like his team there and they're asking me all these different questions. Like, why were you there? And where'd you go to school? And how'd you learn about Ayurveda? And like all these different questions. And I'm just answering them. And then he's like, I read your book and I really loved the way that you modernize Ayurveda. And I would love to have you on faculty of Chopra. I was like, what? And there's a video. And if you scroll down his Instagram to 2017, you will see it. And it's him and he's saying, and my Instagram name was still Eat Feel Fresh then. I didn't even go by Sahara Rose. I was like kind of still in that like hiding behind the brand. So he was like, I'm here with like Eat Feel Fresh and Sahara Eat Feel Fresh and introducing her on faculty. And he offered to write the foreword of my book. And he wrote the foreword of that book. And even the publishers were like, it's too late to add a foreword. I was like, this man is writing a foreword to the book and like cancel the book if his foreword is not in it. Like, and so I got it in and he wrote the foreword of that book and I put my all into I didn't even have a podcast back then, but like figuring out how to get on podcasts, how to promote a book, how to like everything. And all of a sudden, like I went from rejected by 30 publishers to a year later, a book, which became one of the best-selling idiot's guidebooks in general, with foreword by Deepak Chopra. Put my all into it. Then the publisher said, okay, we'll make your Ayurveda book happen. And that was my next book, Feel Fresh. And I share this because I've realized now that homeless man who helped me cross the street was not actually a human. I believe that he was an angel guised to ask me, if you see someone who's not helping you in your career, who's not bringing you ahead, someone who's actually holding you back from the meeting this, would you have the same respect for him as you would this noteworthy spiritual author? And the fact that in that moment I said yes to, by the way, another doctor of physics is the reason why the moment I let that man go down the subway is when his email came through. And I feel that a lot of angels come guised as homeless people, as divine tests in different ways. And it's like, it's so easy to revere the spiritual teacher, the celebrity, the this, the that. There are teachers all around us. And ultimately, will we live in that vibration, not when we're in front of the camera, but far behind it? And I started the energy of living as if I was already living my Dharma when I had to write this like Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda textbook that didn't feel like my Dharma at all, but I showed up for it like it was. So it became that. So I share that because right now, whoever is listening, you're in a job that might feel like this isn't the job for me. So I'm going to just check out. Show up like that job is your God-given gift, that this is the exact job you are meant to be in to acquire the exact gifts, skills, experiences, meet the people. And if you treat this as your Dharma will unfold from it, because nothing is random and everything comes in sequential order. Like the rose, petal by petal, we can't rush to the end. What's my purpose? It's not a fortune cookie. You are living your purpose already. You are already living the story. Right now, you just might be in the shitty part of the memoir, And it's funny because when I was broke, living at my grandma's house, none of that, I was like, I definitely can't tell this part of the story. That's the part of the story I end up talking about the most, So that thing that you might be in right now that you're ashamed about of like, I can't live my purpose because this, I can't help people because that, I can't coach people because my life is still, in shambles. I'm still anxious. I still don't have it figured out. No, it's that very thing that makes you relatable, that will actually give you the wisdom and experience to understand what people are going through. Because who would you rather be coached by about your anxiety? Someone who got their PhD in anxiety 20 years ago and has never felt it a moment in their life, but like read a lot of books about it, can imagine what that's like, but not really. Or the person who's like, yeah, I still actually wake up with really bad anxiety every day. And these are the practices that I do. I think we would all go with the person who's actually had that experience. But we need to let go of this conditioning that we were raised in, that like you need to be the PhD, the doctor, the expert, the this. You are an expert in your own life. And the obstacles that you have overcome and helped people overcome are the very things that you are meant to share in your Dharma.
I love that. That's so true. We're not qualified as life coaches, but that's basically what we are. And you're probably very similar. And it's through our own experience. And that's the experience that we then share and be of service with. But I just love that story. Oh my God, what a story. You say it so well. And you're right. Like all of the hidden gems and gold nuggets are under the shadow. And the shadow that you found in helping someone to change that route, you might have been going off onto an exit, like the highway analogy, but you got supercharged forward, right, to have that intercept, that email, because you did the right thing and you were of service with love.
And I want to make like a really important distinction that you mentioned of like, how do you know if it's an exit off the highway or it's part of your Dharma, right? I always, when I'm in that, I always ask, is this bringing me further expansion or contraction? Like, if I continue with this, do I like how this is going? Right. So, for example, if I like am working this job, I don't enjoy it. I dread my days. And if I imagine myself working there like 5 years from now, I would be really upset with my life. Then that feels like a contract. If I tune into the energy of this job and my future with it, I'm going to feel a contraction in my body, right? I'm literally going to feel myself close my shoulders, close my heart. My energy gets smaller. But if I, for example, get an experience to shadow someone, maybe it's not exactly what I want to do, or I can get a job somewhere. It's not my end goal, but it's bringing me more expansion. It's giving me more experience. It's giving me more insight that I know on the other end of this, I will be closer to my Dharma than I am now. Then that is something to step into. And I feel a lot of us, especially spiritual people, put that pressure of like, I don't know if I should take action on that thing because it might not be my purpose. Your purpose isn't a one and done step, right? It's a series of things that unfold. So sometimes it is getting the job for the podcast that really inspires you, and you get insight from there, and you join the team and you learn how things are done. And by the way, not everyone's Dharma is to be an entrepreneur. Like, can we just talk about that for a moment? Like, I feel like it feels like everyone needs to start their own thing. No, for so many people, and I have these 9 archetypes, but especially people in like the warrior archetype, being part of a team is a huge part of their Dharma, being part of a shared collective mission. So, and we can talk about what these archetypes are, the teacher, the nurturer, the visionary, the activist, the entertainer, the entrepreneur, the researcher. There are so many different ways that your Dharma can show up. And I feel that sometimes we look at social media and like, we think, oh, it must mean being a YouTuber. Oh, it must mean being an author. It must mean this. No, those are just the people creating content,
Yeah, totally.
But your Dharma might be to have a beautiful restaurant that's farm to table. Your Dharma may be to design new systems for educating children. It may be you being part of a team of like organic products. It might be, I always say your Dharma is ultimately an integration of your highest form of joy and your highest form of service. So what brings me joy? Write everything down. And how can I be of service with that? And that will point you towards your Dharma.
Yeah. I love that. And the contraction, feeling into if you're contracting or if you're like stepping into it with excitement, and that's how I really feel like, if you got off the exit, like you said, like waking up with dread, which I had for a long time working for another business when I was 18, 19, in early 20s until we pivoted into our own business. I'd wake up dreading to go to work. 9 to 5. Even if I got all my work done, I had to sit there till 5, and it's like, kill the soul. Sorry. It's like, I did all my work. I'm like ahead, and you don't let me go half an hour early, you work overtime all the time, but there's no reward. These are the rules. And so controlling in the cage. So I feel like if you're in that situation, it's probably there is more potential within you. And that's just a big sign smacking you, right?
It's such a great example too, because I never worked for anyone in my whole life. I've never had a job where I had to show up at 8:30 and I couldn't leave till 5. I was just allergic to it. So I've always been an entrepreneur, but I've been at the moment where I've thought, oh my gosh, this isn't going to work. I think I'm going to have to go get a job. I'll give it one last roll of the dice. And Roxy and I know this story. I haven't shared it before, but I literally got in the car and I drove to the capital city, Brisbane. I had a little water treatment business at the time. And I had an amazing client, and we got to the end of building this big hospital and the job was over, and I didn't have another job to go to. And I thought, I'll find one. But time ticked and the bank account got lower and lower and lower and lower until the point where it was like, shivers, I might have to go get a job. I'll give it one last try. And I got no radio on, like nothing. Like, how you were saying about the Deepak prepping thing. I'm like, in the car with no radio, driving to Brisbane.
You're on level 1 of your Dharma 2 path, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I did not know where I was going. I didn't have an appointment or anything. And long story short, I got a 25 grand job. I don't even know how. I drove past this site and I looked in there and I thought, I don't think they're doing much in there. And I just had this knowing, do a U-turn, go back. And I walked in and I knocked on the door, and I was getting a bit deflated, right? It was about lunchtime and I'd had lots of no's. People going, oh, it sounds great, but not at the moment, like da-da-da-da-da-da. And my enthusiasm was starting to get down, but I had a greeting. Hi, how you going? I treat water. By chance, do you need anyone to treat water? And this guy looked at me and he looked at his friend and he goes, well, aren't you in the right place at the right time? Come inside. And he brought me in. And just to put it in perspective, I was used to treating these big bodies of water that are about 1 million litres. He goes, we've got this site, it's somewhere else. It's 65 million litres. Do you think you can do it? I said, yeah, sure, no problem. I didn't have a clue how I was going to do it, right? And I did it, and I had work for like 5 years after that from that client, and it led to other things and all of this. But early on in that, and it led, I was still my own boss, was the moral of the story, and I always have been. Different life path playing out. But I've been at that point where you're like, this could be it. Like, I don't know, the God, the angels, whatever it is, higher self, speak to me. And I went home and told Roxy, and like we were both couldn't believe it because it was.
And I think at that time I was only just starting the insurance business, which was hard to, a startup, you're hustling and you're trying to get clients in. And then divinely you were bringing in some flow of abundance through that angelic way. So yeah,
I feel like that was your version of writing the Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda of like, when the moment that you're going to quit, I feel like spirit gives you this opportunity, but it's something that you feel like, I can't handle this. It's beyond what I see for myself, right? From 1 million gallons to 65 million gallon. And the fact that you didn't know how, but you said yes, and you figured it out, led to 5 more years of work and everything that unfolded, and you being to this moment right now, as opposed to what a lot of people would have done. I've never done 65 million gallons. I have no idea. I'm scared. No. And then who knows what would have happened next, So I feel like sometimes spirit has bigger plans for us than we have for ourselves. And can we step up to that plate when it shows up?
And I had chills when you were telling your story, because I could relate to so much of it. And it's one thing to read it in the books, but when it like works for you and you go, oh, when you follow your highest excitement, you start to activate the organizing principle and the universe conspires to help you. And you just got to listen to your higher self and trust it because it's you and it wants the best for you, but you just can't see it. So you've almost got to get yourself or your self-limiting dialogue, beliefs, whatever they may be, out of the way and just take constant action towards that goal, which and move out of your head that it needs to look like this. It's like so great that you said yes to the book. It's not exactly what I was after, but it's on the right track. And who would have known that it was all part of this? It's just such a beautiful, inspiring story for people who have, let's call it a dream or this idea of what their life could be, to keep acting on it. Thank you so much for sharing it so well too.
And even breaking down what you just said of like, imagine if I went up to Deepak Chopra and said, "Hey, Deepak, I have an idea for a book."
Yeah.
Do you think he would have given me his email? No. Even if I said, "I've made up my own version of Ayurveda and it's like this," do you think he even would have given me email? No. It's actually the fact that it was the textbook. It was written in this very scientific and logical way that even though my human immediate self was like, I don't want to have to write like this, but I feel sometimes we need to like pay our spiritual dues, like learn about things. I feel like we can, in our Western culture, so quickly jump into, I want to do it my way and I'm going to be the expert and I'm going to be this. And it's like, yes, and like learn about the systems, learn about the ancient roots. There's a reason why things are the way that they are. There's a reason why Ayurveda has been passed down in this way for over 10,000 years. There's a reason why plant medicine ceremonies are done a specific way. There's a reason why teachings are taught a specific way. And it's really important for us to also be very humble on the path. Because I would say one of the biggest shadows in the spiritual community is that like ego that can happen of like, I'm spiritual now, so like I know and I have all the answers. And I feel is coming from this good place of like creativity, but in our Western world, we don't sit with teachers. We don't pay like honor to lineages. We've lost touch with our elders. And I feel this is really missing. So for me, like as much as possible, I'm always studying. I try to find the most ancient texts I can. I'm always going back to the roots, always going back to the roots. And that allows me to act like, sometimes you might have a theory on something for a little bit of time and then you disprove your own theory, right? So I feel like the reason why all of this happened is because I said yes to this thing that my human self didn't want to do. I want to be at the shiny, sparkling thing, but is actually what built the foundation for me to be here.
That's right. The foundation is part of the inner soul healing, to have that strength of the soul. So it's all whole before we move into our Dharma and our purpose. And along with the skills that you need in your toolkit. Like, you couldn't have gone and created such a good book had you not done stage 1 of the book creation, and you had to learn how to do a foreword and, the table of contents and the chapters. So you basically, like, when it came to your book, it was divine. It was easy. It was flow because you'd done it before, right? So it's almost like a test in a way to see if you do the textbook, study and then move into the flow of creation.
And isn't that life? It's like you want to have sacred union, but sometimes you need that test relationship to like do all the deeper healing work that will prepare you for the sacred union.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people have that going on sometimes, or, with relationships, we've got a couple of single friends and they're like, yeah, I think I'm just happy by myself, because it's, they're not listening to the off ramp and learning those lessons, because that spiritual ego is sitting in the way. Like, I deserve this, this, and this, and this is what I want, rather than looking at the valuable lesson, because everything's a mirror. So whatever that person is bringing us we call that into our vortex to learn and grow from. And a lot of people are missing that part of relationship lessons. I mean, we haven't fortunately had to go through that single kind of pathway since we had our awakening together, but there's certainly been times where, we're getting triggered by each other, And we have to turn it around. You can't blame each other because we know that's, it's spiritual bypassing if you're doing that. So there's been testing moments, not easy, but we're very grateful for the triggers, because if it's not someone close to you, you just tell them to get lost and see you later, right? You'd be like, yep, okay, bye, never talk to you again. And I think we have to really stay with the energy and be really listening to what is presented, because it's us that create these realities.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, I could say so much from that experience, but I do feel it's, again, even bringing it to relationships, dropping the idea of what we think it's supposed to look like and how focused we are on surface level things when it comes to relationship of like, he needs to be like, right now there's that trend of like 6'5", blue eyes, works in finance, and like
I know the song. I know the song.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
And it is so what, but it's like, do you want to play with the Ken Barbie or do you want a relationship?
That's right. So tell us, what do you do to raise your vibration? You were talking about a 10-day silent rose dieta. Can you share a little bit more? We spoke about it at the start, but we'd like to go into it here.
Yes. So this year for me, I've been really just diving deep and working with more like plants and learning from indigenous wisdom. So I've sat with like ayahuasca, San Pedro, done temescal. I was in Guatemala studying womb healing. And on the womb healing training, this woman told me about doing a dieta, which is sitting with one plant, a non-psychoactive plant. So for example, a rose, like a literal like rose flower, or there are different plants that you could do it with. And I had heard of a dieta, but from my understanding, you needed to be like in the jungle, like in complete silence. You can't even make eye contact with people, which is the original way. But she said that she kind of facilitates these more like urban ones. So you're in your own home, but you're not working, you're not having conversations, you're not ingesting media. You can listen to music if it's like the frequency, like a rose frequency music, but I'm not listening to like Cardi B, because you're very open at that time. So I decided coming back that I would do this as part of my integration. And so I did an opening ceremony, really calling in the energy of the rose, really not knowing what to expect. Again, I'm talking about a flower here. And all of a sudden my thoughts were like, notice how roses like unpetal, like petal by petal. And that is the beauty of the rose, that we don't see it all. It's the veiling. Let the mystery unveil. Trust the path. Step by step, you are being guided. And I'm just like having these thoughts, but again, in my own mind, in my own inner voice. And so every day, just being in my apartment by myself, I would just stare at the wall and I would start to think like, I love this apartment so much. I love my pink walls here. I love my plants. What would it look like if I didn't have this apartment? Do I really need this apartment? No, I guess I don't really need it. I mean, I like it, but do I need it? How is this actually holding me back? This thing that I feel like I have to be here for? I guess I don't really need it. And then I start thinking like living in LA, like, why do I live here? Oh, because all my friends are here. Why do I feel like I have to stay here because my friends are here? What would it look like if I made new friends somewhere else? What would it look like if I just spent more time by myself? Well, I guess that could be interesting, actually. So every single day it was like something I really loved and felt like I needed, and showing me unpetal, let that petal die for something new to be born. So by the 10th day, I did this for 10 days, spirit. And so during this time, I started feeling this deep love for India. And I used to live in India for 2 years. And I was just like, oh, I miss like the Bollywood music and the culture and the spirituality and just like this deep, like ancient past life nostalgia for it. And by the 10th day, I'm like, it's time for me to go back to India and actually give up my apartment and sell my belongings and, be based between Dubai, the Middle East, where my family's from, and India, and just see what happens. And so that's happening in 1 month. I've given my notice and I'm going on this next journey into the unknown. And it's interesting because, after my divorce, it like pushed me into the unknown. It was like I was living a normal married life, found out about his infidelity, and it was like the rug pulled under my feet. And I didn't want it. I didn't plan it. It was like one of those dark night, real dark night of the soul, the darkest night. But I learned from that experience how I did shadow work I would have never done as a result of that. I became versions of me I would have never done. I started listening to music on a deeper level, which led to me producing music, which led to me making an album. Like I start like into meeting so many new versions of me that I would have never met before. And so I started to realize that, instead of me waiting for life to throw me out of the comfort zone with another thing under the rug, let me continue to step into that. When you get kind of comfortable in a space where you can feel that you've kind of grown the most that you can, it doesn't necessarily mean moving, but it could be just like changing up your friend group, trying a new hobby, going deeper into your spiritual journey, sitting with medicine, meditating more, traveling, like doing a pattern interrupt. And I feel that this is really important because as humans, we can like biologically get very like stuck in our comfort ways, and to continue to like push ourselves into that unknown, because in the unknown, the darkness is when all possibilities can come to light. And we're so afraid of the darkness. Like if we say, oh, that thing was dark, we think that was negative, right? It's dark, bad vibes. But actually the dark is the infinite. The dark is space. The dark is like, if I'm on a 100-floor building and I'm going down the stairs, it's going to take me quite a long time to get to the bottom. If I free fall off, trust my parachute will unfold in divine time. I'm going to go real quick. And that's what these like dark nights of the soul, the opportunity they give us, is like all of a sudden we are choosing things and seeing things and letting go of things in quantum speed. So if you stop trying to hold on to the barricades and instead let yourself free fall, you will quantum leap into a new reality that you would have never, and I am saying never, in your wildest dreams believed possible.
Yes,
I can relate so much.
I can too.
Oh my goodness. It's like on ayahuasca ceremonies, whenever mother gives me that falling feeling and I can't feel like for a moment, I can't feel anything, see anything, hear anything. I just, the little song kicks in, "Hello, darkness, my old friend." And I just sort of lie there. And I've actually once been hanging on to the petals of a rose, stopping myself from falling into the center. And in the center, she's showing me this thing with teeth. And there's like this thing there, and I'm slipping, and I can't get a grip on the petals properly because they're slippery and velvety, and they're so soft and nice, until eventually I'm like, oh, you know what? I'll just die. And I let go, and I fall back into the center of the teeth, and I land in pillows. And there's like fluffy bunny rabbits there. She said, "You could have just surrendered earlier." And I'm like, about letting go of control, which, right, it used to be a big thing. I used to try and organize things because it was all up to me, right? Because I was the small business owner and it's all on my back. I've got to make things happen. It's like when we first met, Roxy goes, "You're always very concerned about money. Why are you always thinking about your plans and, how things are working, and you're thinking ahead?" But that's because it was all on me. And she used to go, "Well, I don't know. I feel like you just at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you're going for a surf or you're having a juice and a coffee. I've got to sit there till 5 o'clock. And, I wish I could have a life like that." And eventually we got to the point where I said, "Well, why don't you back yourself and go out on your own instead of working for the company?" And she did that. But what came with that was, how many clients have I got? What are my meetings next week? It's just, it turned into a different thing, but she got the freedom. And it's like, freedom now for us is one of our highest, things that we value. We make less money than we used to when we were doing insurance stuff, but we're so fulfilled and our life's so much more exciting. And there's trips and experiences and meeting people and having conversations like this where you go, "Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. I love it." So giving up the control, back to that in the darkness, I can just relate to that so well.
How interesting that you were holding on to the rose petals, and I had the exact same experience, in my divorce of like, where am I going to live? What am I going to do? And the affirmation I kept telling myself in my head was trust, flow, surrender, let go. Trust, flow, surrender, let go. Trust, flow, surrender, let go. I'm the one I've been waiting for. And those
Oh,
became the lyrics of my song.
Is that the song? I love it.
That's the song. Exactly. So it's like, that's it. Like, trust the path, let it unfold. We try so hard to know what's at the finish line. You wouldn't even want to know. It's like, imagine if like 5 years ago you knew everything that would have happened. Like, you would have been scared, but it all actually ended up working out, you know?
Yeah.
It's better not to know. Spirit actually blocks us of what we're not supposed to know until we're ready to handle it.
Yeah, I
And
completely
actually,
agree.
when you start to see that, like, infidelity or your business partner stealing money from you or that thing, you actually weren't ready vibrationally to see it until a certain level. And then Spirit's like, okay, now they're prepared. We will let them see this next thing.
Love it. Thank you so much for coming today on Elevated Conversations. We've really enjoyed your energy and your storytelling. We wish you all the best on your travels to India. You'll have to keep us posted on how you're going. And all the best to you, beautiful Sahara Rose.
Thank you so much. Appreciate being here. And for people who want to dive deeper into their Dharma, my book, Discover Your Dharma, is a really good place to start. I have a free masterclass as well. So if they go on my website, iamsahararose.com, they can also take a free quiz to discover their unique Dharma archetype. So that will tell you, are you a visionary, teacher, researcher? And it's a really great place to get started. So please message me if you listen to this episode. I'm excited to dive in.
I very much feel like it would be so fun to do a follow-up chat, like a part 3, right? In like whatever, 3 months, 4 months, after Christmas, however it works, and talk about the different archetypes, talk about what's happened with your move, right? Like we don't know how it's going to turn out. But as Roxy and I are starting to say to one another all the time, but how exciting, because no matter what happens, it's going to be great, right? Because your higher self's guiding you and it's you, so it wants the best. So I think that would be like spiritual principles in practice. How does that sound?
Let's do it in 6 months, because I'll be in the new reality then. So let's do it in 6 months.
In hindsight. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It'll be really fun. Well, we're going to put all the links to how people can work with you, your masterclass, the book, and everything in the description of this. I know that people are going to be just drawn to your energy. And listen, we wish you all the best with your move too.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate being here. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Please message me on Instagram. I am Sahara Rose. Tell me what you loved about this. And so excited to connect with you all and see you again for the follow-up in 6 months.